In this video, I'm going to take you from this to this. All of the 7 licks that I'm going to play are over a meter style backing track. So it's got that classic, slow, greasy New Orleans funk groove, which is a lot of fun to play over. It'll give you lots of space and thinking time, and also allow you to work on your swing feel within your rhythm and lead lines. This is all based around a static vamp in the key of C. I'll be mostly playing a C7 as a backing, although the bass guitar only plays a C, an F and a B flat. So there's no third there. So this will actually give you fairly free rein in terms of scale choice over the top. Now, rather than just noodle away in a stream of consciousness, we're going to create structure by using rhythm and lead as call and response ideas. So this could be a funk rhythm idea followed by a complementary melodic lead part, or vice versa. What we're trying to do is create a little conversation with the lines that we're actually playing. All of the tab and resources are available on my Buy Me a Coffee support page. You can find the links down below. Also, stick around to the end of the video where you'll be able to click through to a free backing track over which you can play all of the licks from this lesson. Right, let's dive in. So this first lick is based on the great Leo Nocentelli from the Meters. We're using the backdrop of a C7 chord here in open position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So the first response line comes off the back of this C7 chord. Even though we're playing a C7 here, which has got the major third inside it, we're going to play a C minor pentatonic. Creates a little bit of tension there. So we're just going C, B flat, down to G. So if we look at this under the fingers, we're playing C minor pentatonic, or part of it at least. And then we jump to the second half. So the second response line, if you like, is actually based on the C major pentatonic. Creates a little bit of brightness. Be a little bit careful with this. Under the fingers, this looks like an A minor pentatonic starting on C, but recognize the fact that the C is the root note. Notice that it brightens up a little bit when we go to this A note here. So slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we get this really nice contrast between the two. Now the second half of the lick actually combines those two scales in one. All we're actually doing is harmonizing the first line with thirds. So we're just taking the major third above each of those two notes. So you can really hear the sound brighten up when we go to that major pentatonic scale. So this lick combines minor and major pentatonic within the same shape. Effectively, we're creating what we call a hybrid scale. The line itself is fairly straightforward. Again, we're using the C7 as our chordal backdrop for our response line. So we're just developing that idea from the first lick, but we're just adding this minor third that we've got up here in 8th position on the G string. And we just do a little quarter note bend or blues curl out of that minor third. This is like a typical blues trick. So we're just bending out of that note ever so slightly. So you could think of this as a hybrid scale shape. There's a really useful line that you can play which goes like so. Now what we're doing there is replacing the flattened 7 inside of the minor pentatonic, there's your flattened 7, with the major 6th from major pentatonic. So we go like this. And it creates this momentary feeling of brightness when we hit that major 6. Now this is a really nice little shape which will give you the best of both worlds, a little bit of major pentatonic and a little bit of the minor pentatonic, and you can easily play this over the entire backing track. It sounds great. So in between the chords we've got this line, and we can also mirror that up the octave. So it's the same idea. And in between we've got this little blues response line. So this is minor blues. And notice again here I'm doing a little blues curl on that minor third, on that E flat there. So this will be a push bend. And we can do the same thing up here on the G string. It'll also help to break out of that standard blues box. Obviously there's nothing wrong with this scale shape, but what we're trying to do is create a different effect. This gives you a few more options to play exactly the same lick in different positions. So the whole thing slowly, 3, 4, 1. So in this next lick, we've flipped the call and response by actually starting with a melodic idea followed by chords. What we're actually doing again is building upon that hybrid minor major pentatonic idea that we looked at in the previous 2 licks, and now joining up the scale with the flat 5 from C minor blues. So we've got a combination of C blues plus that major 6 from major pentatonic. So the idea that we've got here, we're sliding up here from 7th position. So we're using that flattened 5. And then we're doing a typical blues hammer on here. So we're actually using C minor to C major. Just hammering on there. Play the double stop and then hammer on. So this lick is all about thirds. Because of the C7 chord, we'll be using thirds from C Mixolydian. That's C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat and C. Effectively a C major scale with a flattened 7. So the only real difference there is that B flat there, which helps to target that flattened 7 within that C7 chord. Now this lick actually uses a similar idea to the previous lick, where we're hammering on from first finger to second finger there for that C major chord. Now we can actually do the same thing up 3 positions there, or at the 11th position, and do a hammer on there. And this will target those Mixolydian notes. Notice again that we've got the B flat inside that chord there. This will give us that C7 sound, as opposed to, it's not a full C major sound that we want there. So we want that flat 7. And then we just run down a succession of thirds within C Mixolydian. So we're starting here at the 10th and 9th fret on the D and G strings. Slide down. Here we're going 7 and 5. Slide down. So it's a nice easy idea here because we're using the same shape twice. Slide down, change shape. And then the final one, using that shape that we had before. And then we do a little blues idea, going from the minor third, slide up, go to the roots. So our lick is based upon the second and third strings. So a starting point for learning this Mixolydian scale in thirds all over the neck is to use our parallel string sets. So for example, you could start here on the second and third strings, and so on and so on. Now you can transfer this across the whole neck as well if you like. Again, we're still thinking a little bit like F major, so you really want to practice this over the backing track so you can hear what each of those thirds actually sounds like. So this lick takes the thirds idea a little bit further, and this time uses the interval of a sixth. Sixths are great. They sound super cool, used with guitarists such as Steve Cropper, all over the place. And they sound great over this backing track. Now again, because we're using C Mixolydian, or the parent scale of F major, it's a good idea to practice our sixths all over the neck, so we can see where this lick actually comes from. So a good starting point for this would just be to take the beginning of our lick, and just practice that whole scale up and down the first and third strings, so the E and G strings. And so on and so on. So the whole lick, when we actually break it down, we've got these nice little movable forms. You can either play this with 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. That's the first one, 10 and 12, and then we repeat the second shape, and that's really nice because those first 4 shapes, they're easy to slide between the 2 because they follow the 2 forms. So a nice little easy lick there. And we repeat a similar idea down here on the second and third strings. We're just doing diatonic sixths, that's all it is. Notice that we're not trying to slide into the next shape down because we run out of the same shape. So if we try and... we can't slide to the next position along, so we're actually jumping to the next one along. Makes it easy to slide, and then we run with our minor third to major third idea that we had earlier on. Again, we've got a nice little sixth idea there. And then we just finish with our C7 chord. So this lick has got a lovely little crunchy chord. We're actually really hitting on this flat 7 and root. When we put them together, creates this really crunchy little harmony. So if we combine this with a little pull off there from the little finger from the 11th fret E flat, you can see that we're just using notes from inside our standard minor pentatonic scale. We just keep that pull off. So the trick here is keeping your third and first fingers on the frets while you execute that pull off without doing anything with the third finger. You want both of those notes to ring out as well. And what we're actually doing here is using the major pentatonic for our response line. So this C major pentatonic in 7th position would go like so. So we've got this line. Notice we're sliding from that minor third from minor pentatonic. Nice little bluesy line. So again, we've got this really nice contrast between minor pentatonic, that little lick there, and then major pentatonic. And so on. Now the final lick really puts a lot of these ideas that we've talked about together. We're going a bit more outside with this one. Here we're actually basing everything on a dominant 7 sharp 9 chord. Now this chord itself is super important because in this chord we've got a major third, just like our normal dominant chord, flat 7. Now this sharp 9 we can also think of as a minor third. So it actually sounds like we're playing major and minor in the same chord. So it's got this sort of ambiguous quality. Now this means it's a really good vehicle for both major and minor pentatonic plus the blues scale. And this is really what we're doing in our final lick. So if we've got our rhythm at the start, the cool line, notice I'm going from the third rather than putting the C in the chord there. Sounds a little bit more interesting. You could also put the A on the top there as well, that sounds cool as well. I'm just doing this little partial chord in the middle there. So for the response lick against that dominant 7 sharp 9 chord, we're playing a kind of John Scofield outside line, which effectively weaves between 3 different scales: C major pentatonic, C minor pentatonic, and C blues. And what we're essentially doing here is effectively superimposing those scales over the top of one another, and that's how we create these kind of outside sounds all the way through. So we're starting from minor to major third, root, and then coming down minor pentatonic. And then we slide up to the flat 5 from blues. And this is where it goes slightly more outside because we're now hitting the major 6th from major pentatonic. Down to the root, and then our lick from before, where we just go from minor to major third. If you actually put it against that chord, you can hear how it's weaving in between those 3 scales. Sounds super, super cool. So the final step with this is to take these 7 licks and start to put them together into some kind of meaningful improvisation. So hopefully I've given you the tools to really start thinking about phrasing and phrase lengths, how we can use these chords to build up some solo ideas in between. So I'm going to do a short improvisation using some of these licks as a springboard for some of my own ideas to see how you can actually take this forward.